Hey Melissa, I decided that this was actually easier to just make a video. I contemplated sending you a very detailed email, but that would actually take me longer. So I decided to just make a video. The first exercise that we did today was the glute bridges with a block in between your thighs. And I like it between my thighs, not the knees, just because I feel like it's actually harder. It pulls in harder. But go ahead, place a block or a towel or ball, whatever you have, in between your legs. And then press really strongly into your feet so that you're pushing straight down. If you press away from you, it activates your quads. If you pull them towards you, it activates your hamstrings. If you press straight down, you should feel your glutes. Allow your pelvis to tuck just a little bit, and then reach your pelvis up towards the sky, but not so high that your ribs come off the ground. So allow your ribs to stay on the ground, and then go ahead and pulse for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And release. And you can do 2 to 3 reps of those. For the sake of the video, I'm just doing 1. And then the next thing we did was hip rolls. And so instead of stretching, go ahead, stay in this position on the floor. Think about, I'm going to do the right hip first. Think about your right hip coming up. So move just from your right hip and allow your legs come along for the ride. They're not the drivers. And come up so that your shoulder is still on the floor and that your back is not really arched. So keep your back straight and in neutral. And then when you get to that position, allow your knees to drop and pretend that they're like 300 pounds so that your body is really supporting all of the weight on the end of your knees. And then go ahead, candles, up, arrow, pull with your right hip. So move from your right hip, pull your legs back to center, and then switch sides. So go ahead, think about your left hip reaching up, coming to the side, but don't let your shoulder come up off the floor. And then allow your knees to drop down a little bit, but pretend they're like 300 pounds so that you're holding them. All of your weight is at the end of your knees. And then go ahead, think about moving from that left hip, candles, up arrow. Use your core to support you and pull your hips back to center. And do 3 on each side. Now, the next move we did was the hip lifts. So take a block or a book, whatever you have, and see if you can find neutral pelvis so that your pelvis is not slumped backwards. That's easier. It's easier to cheat that way. So come to sitting on your sits bones, and you can place your hands behind you until you gain strength and mobility. That's fine. But then exhale, candles, lift your left leg up over the block. And just play with this. Do it 10 times on each side. And my legs are so tired right now. But this helps with hip mobility, side joint stability. And try to do it. I even noticed with myself, I want to cheat, I want to roll back. Try not to roll back. Do 10 times on each leg. So I'm going to switch legs for just a moment. And as you get stronger, you can move the block higher and higher. I don't think I can do that high. But you can just kind of play with how high can you lift your leg to build that hip strength. So do 10 on each side. The next move we did was the block in the groin. I'm going to do this variation on our hands and knees that I showed you. You can do any position. And if you're feeling really ambitious, you can do more than one position in a single day. But just go ahead again, place that block or whatever you have in between you in your groin area, and then squeeze the block up towards you and squeeze it as hard as you can and hold, hold, hold. Compromise your spine when you hold for 10 seconds and then release for about 5-10 seconds and then do it again. And you can do that 3 times on each leg. So then just switch legs and do it again, keeping your body stable and just really squeezing in that block to get your hips to release. The next exercise we did was the calf stretch, which we've done before, but just place a half dome, a rolled up towel, a log, anything you have on the floor. Place one foot on the outer edge of the block so that your ball of your foot is up on the block and your heels down on the floor. And see that the leg that's on the block, my right leg, is on there now. Your right hip is directly above your right ankle, so there's a straight line. And then step your opposite leg as far up as you can without moving your hip away from that alignment. And hold for about a minute. Again, for the sake of time in the video, I'm not doing the full poses. And then switch legs. So step your left leg up, ensure an alignment, and step your right foot forward. And this will absolutely get easier. When I first started, I was actually still back here. I could not even move my foot forward. So you'll get there. And then the last one is a double calf stretch. So, sorry, I'm going to turn it. And go ahead, place both of your feet up onto the block. See if you can keep this position, and then bend forward at the hips just until, don't let your back arch. So as soon as you feel like your back has to arch, or until your back of your legs are like killing you, stop. So if that's up here, that's okay for today. Just come, and also see if you can get your knees to be relaxed so that you can move your kneecaps like we talked about. And see if you can get your knees to also be straight. A lot of us have rolled in knees. See if you can twist from the hip to get those knees to be straight. And hold here for another minute. And then release. And then on your stairs, we talked about doing a loaded calf stretch. And I'm going to show you on the block if I don't fall. Hopefully I don't fall. But it's easier on stairs. But the loaded stretch was coming down so your heels are below your toes, and then pressing back up. So just the typical calf stretching. But when you come down, add that resistance. So resist coming down. And if this is still easy for you, you can put on a backpack and add more weight so that you're getting even more load to strengthen and lengthen your hamstrings and calves. So play with that exercise. And then the very last exercise we did was the hip lifting, the pelvic lift. So come to a mat or stairs or a book. And I like to have my toes hanging off the front to remind myself to put my weight in my heel, not my toe. But come so that you're standing with your right leg on the block, and see that you're all stacked up. Your hip is directly over your ankle. And then go ahead and let yourself kind of collapse into that hip, and then press strongly into the block. I'm losing my balance. And when you do that, press so strongly into this leg, and you can feel it burning, that your left leg wants to come up. And then release it down, and then press really strongly into the block so that your hip comes up. And ensure that the movement is coming from this lever pull from your right hip and not coming from your left back. So it's really easy for me to just pull up this back. You can see that's kind of sloppy. But if I do it from my right hip, it's a lot more slow and way more controlled. And do that about 5 times on each side. So then switch sides, and again, collapsing into that hip just a little bit, and then pressing strongly to get your right leg to come up. And this just really works the side glute and also the hips. And if you need balance, it's okay, you can be next to the wall. I'm really wobbly like this. But just practice those, and next week or the next week when I see you, let me know how you feel. Goodbye.